To come across to you first, Adam Schwarz. It's been ages in the making, and finally, after 3 long years, 14 different sets of negotiations, we've managed to ink the FTA with the UK. But many have called it reverse colonization of the British Raj by India. Would you agree with that analogy, that Indian ware are all set to now present itself at the UK markets? Reverse colonization.
Well, I wouldn't quite put it in those terms, but I do think that is an important part of the kind of components of the way that really this deal has happened. And really just broadly, just to give you a bit of brief perspective, from the UK's trading point of view, our trading relations have, of course, dramatically changed over the past 5 years due to our withdrawal from the EU and its customs union, which has meant that we have tried to compensate for that loss of preferential access to UK markets through trying to agree deals with other countries. And really for a long time, India has been one of the major trade targets for trying to agree one of those deals. I would say broadly kind of for 3 reasons. The first, of course, is that India is going to become one of the world's major powers, even larger than it already is. Secondly, because, of course, of these shared democratic values broadly that the UK has with India. But thirdly, kind of onto your point, because of the deep cultural ties that the UK actually has with India. We have 2 million people of Indian origin in the UK who've made a major contribution to British society. And, Starmer didn't quite put it in this terminology this morning when he was speaking with Prime Minister Modi. But really, I kind of see this as an important part of addressing and kind of reconciling with the UK's kind of legacy of colonialism with India, really. And of course, this deal, talks about, and a lot of it is to do with economics and reducing tariff barriers and non-trade barriers. But really, this goes beyond a traditional trade deal and actually goes beyond that to say that, these 2 countries are going to cooperate to try to, work together to take on some of the world's biggest problems for the next century, whether it's on climate change or on immigration, on AI or on crime. So really, I think, that is part of a recognition that actually the UK does need to have a shared future in terms of trying to take on the biggest challenges, I think in recognition of its past with India.
Very interesting, given the kind of history the 2 nations have had. Now, Dr. Anandan, if we look at, for example, Scotch and gin, the import duty is going to come down from 150% to 75%, but in the next 4 years, in the next 10 years, it's going to come down to 40%. So FTA, would it be right? It is a free trade agreement which is still in the process. The long-term gains are going to be much higher than what appears to be even now, especially when it comes to no duties on 90% of Indian wares, 99% of India's exports to UK.
Yeah, so I think this is classic win-win, which is what international trade is all about. So if you think back to what we all studied in school, something called the Ricardian theory of comparative advantage, which is you basically make and sell what you're really very, very good at. And so if you look at this deal, it's very, very complementary, right? So what the UK is really getting to sell in India are the high-end products, right? And that's where there's no overlap, right? It's not really hurting any Indian manufacturers. And what the Indians are getting in return is access to the domestic UK market, both in terms of and so when you look at what are these sectors that benefit in India, these are basically the labor-intensive sectors, right? And again, that doesn't hurt the UK economy at all, right? It actually brings down costs very substantially. If you can lower your costs in terms of IT support, that's going to happen. You lower your costs in terms of garments, in terms of footwear, etc. That's going to happen, and there's also, in the longer run, there's also going to be a lot of cost reductions for the UK in terms of pharmaceuticals also, right? And that again is something that there's very little competition between British and Indian industry. So this is actually the best deal that you could think of.